Coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona, home of Super Bowl 57, it's the Gary Stein and Stevens Show with your hosts, Troy Geary, Will Stein, and Dave Stevens.
Hi, everybody. It's me again. We've had so much fun today, but we continue to have the hits, the stars. Everybody keeps stopping by. Troy has been grabbing people left and right. We got Dana White coming up a little bit. So what a fun day it's been. And it's only Tuesday, and we're just getting started. And let me bring in my co-host with the least. Well, he's got the most today because he's been grabbing a lot of people. But Troy Geary is sitting with me. Again, Will is walking around somewhere. But, man, I am so excited to talk for the next few minutes with my guest. We only seem to get to connect at the big games. We talk via text, or now I have your cell phone number. So watch out for that. But Laura Okmin joins us, legendary broadcaster, been with Fox, I think, since 2002, 30 years in the business, really a pioneer, not only for women, but for all young journalists everywhere and what she does. And we'll get into more of that later in this telecast. But, wow, I know you're busy, so thanks for taking out some time of your busy day. Oh, yeah. Okay, let me bring on their mics. Okay, take two. Laura's with us. Now she can talk.
Yay. Thank you for having me. I couldn't wait for this conversation.
And we both have glasses on, so we look very sophisticated. I don't think I've seen you in glasses very much.
I think you finally get to that age and you give up a little bit about, the contacts are irritating. Let's give in, right? Yeah. I think we look very better.
Yeah. So when you're busy all week and you're preparing to do a telecast, when do you have time to do that? When you're walking around talking and doing radio and hosting your own podcast and doing all that stuff?
I used to think that I wanted to call a Super Bowl when I was in my 20s or in my 30s and always be disappointed I wasn't. And I thought that opportunity passed me by. And now I am so happy that I'm at this age calling the Super Bowl, because you learn how to carry all those buckets. So I think at 20-something or 30-something, I would have been so overwhelmed by how am I doing all this on Radio Row? How am I doing all this? I should be studying. And now you figure out how to do it.
And you've been doing it for so long. I mean, does this ever get old to you? I mean, every day on the sidelines, you're away from your family and all of that, and yet you're still living the dream. Is it still a dream?
Yeah, because I look at it that every single week, every single game, I'm having the most wonderful, meaningful conversations. And I think as I've gotten older and more appreciative of this, I stopped caring so much about what people do and started focusing more on who they are. And so now the difference is, when I was a younger reporter, I went in as a reporter and had conversations, but didn't really make connections and relationships. And now I go in, and what I would tell you is, I go in as a human. And so my conversations are deeper. My conversations are better. I build more relationships with the people that I cover. And I think it's made me feel like I'm better at this age at what I do, and definitely better at who I am.
You're covering the Super Bowl this weekend on the radio for Westwood One, working with Kevin Harlan and Kurt Warner. How much fun is that, and how different is it to describe what people are listening to on the radio compared to people actually seeing it on TV?
It's so much fun. I love that you asked that, because it's very different calling a game on TV and radio. And I've got, got the joy of both worlds. I get to, all week and all regular season, I get to do the NFL on Fox. And then for the postseason, I switched to my radio family at Westwood One. But TV, you're trying to just add something that the camera can't catch. And so there's challenges to that. But if I'm talking about Patrick Mahomes' ankle, you all see what I'm seeing. And so I'm trying to constantly see things that I know the guys in the booth and you as a viewer won't see. But radio is a playground for a storyteller, because not only am I going to describe what I see, I've got to find those flowery words, and I've got to make sure you understand. Kevin Harlan's the best at that, right? Like, when Kevin calls a game, what color the uniforms are, what color the towel is, and where the towel is, and how they're touching the towel to get the sweat off their hands. And that's the challenge and the opportunity as a radio reporter, is I can't rely on you to see something, I've got to tell you what I'm seeing. And so again, I've gotten better at that with age, being able to trust my voice, trust what I see down there, because I've been around it a long time now. And it's just an extra layer of storytelling that's really fun on radio.
Laura, I've been in this business a little longer than you, and I've seen a lot of things. When I started out, back as a Cub kid in Minnesota, and I would watch the locker rooms of the athletes, and they would come out, they would drop their towels, they would try to intimidate female reporters, they would do everything they could to kick you out of that locker room. And my sidebar is, I don't understand why we need to be in a locker room anyway with naked guys, like
Nobody
how
should
that
be.
tradition ever
Nobody
started.
should be done.
We're not allowed in the WNBA locker room. I mean, so it's like we shouldn't be either. But you have seen it all. You've come full circle. You're like Leslie Visser in the sense that you've been around, especially as the game has changed. But talk about those early days where guys try to intimidate you. They don't think you belong here, and you had to earn that respect.
Yeah, that was hard. It's still, I'm an organization for women in sports, and they're still dealing with that. That they're still trying to figure out how to navigate that. So it tells you, as far as we've come, there's a lot of things that we haven't moved very far at all. It was hard back then. The locker room was awful. It was the worst experience. And for whatever reason, people would try to paint it like it was a sexy experience. And anyone who's been in a locker room knows that it's not. And so what I think happened is, when you're, a 22-year-old woman, especially, how I was starting out, that was the scariest time of my career, of just praying that somebody would respect you, praying that your eyes, wouldn't by accident look that way and suddenly someone dropped the towel, or they used to have people in the locker room that were assigned to just look to see where women were looking. I'm like, look, ask the men, look at, where the men are looking. They usually have more stories than we do. It was paralyzing. And what I would say now, how I've seen this industry change, is the players are the most respectful group. All they care about is, do you know what you're talking about? And if you do, you earn their trust pretty quickly. And if you don't, I don't care what your gender is, you're out. And so I haven't heard many of my women over these years, and it's been over 5,000 of them, talk about a bad experience in a locker room. But I hear a ton about experiences with bosses and with executives, and about that sexism that hasn't changed very much. But what I would say is, the players have changed so much, and they'd be the same way what you are. I think they'd be the first to go, we don't want women in here, but we don't want men in here. Boot them all.
I wouldn't mind seeing that policy change. I think it's something that I think, I don't want to see a big old fat naked lineman, and I'm sure he doesn't, his wife doesn't want us seeing that, and all those kind of things, and so, I'm wondering, without naming names, do you have an experience that's happened to you that you look back on and go, well, I can't believe I survived this type of situation?
All of it, honestly. I mean, it's just, I think for so long, when I started, you're trying so hard not to stand out, and you're trying to be with the guys, and you're trying to prove you can hang. And so all of a sudden, when they say, then you have to come to the strip club with us, when they say, come to my hotel room to grab that notebook that you need, and suddenly they open the door and a towel, I have all those stories. And if I pulled every single woman in here, they would have all those stories too. And I think why I created Galvanize has nothing to do with helping women be better on camera or on the radio, or, they'll get better with experience, as we all do. But I didn't have anyone to call during that and go, how do I get out of this? How did I do something? Which I didn't, but that was our fear. Did I ask for this? Did he think it was okay to do this? And I didn't have anyone. And so you wound up in all these awful situations, and you just carried those with you. And that's hard for a young woman or a young man. But I think that's what I'm most proud of with Galvanize is, now there's thousands of women who have each other to go. Not only do we go, how do you get out of the situation if you're in it? I want to get to them before they get in it, to go, here's your flag. Let's make sure that we get you out of this.
So yeah, let's kind of elaborate on Galvanize. Just tell the viewers what it's about and what you guys are promoting over there.
You create what you didn't have, and Dave's done the same thing. It's, nobody helped me through this, and how do I help? And I started seeing young women get thrown into this business very high and very fast, and just, I was like, man, I would have drowned. Like, if I got thrown in at that level, at that age, I would never have lasted 3 decades. And I was really fortunate that it happening. I was 40. I was more motherly. I wasn't judgmental. I was protective. And even though I was not a girl's girl, I was a guy's girl. I'm a woman in sports, which meant I hung with the guys. I didn't have girlfriends, but I was motherly enough to go, this isn't right. I was watching them fail because they were set up to fail. And I just kept saying, how can I help? And so Galvanize started 20 women in a conference room. It took me probably 5 months to find 20 women who set out to do this. And then it's grown, a decade later to over 5,000 women all over the sports industry. And again, it's really at the core, it's how to have confidence in yourself, how to have confidence in each other in an industry that's really difficult. There's no black and white to the sports industry. It's all gray. And I just wanted them to have a safe space and a mentor that would help them and sisters that would help them navigate the gray.
And the best way to find what you guys are doing right now is LauraOkmin.com is the best way to get to Galvanize.
Yeah, they will find Galvanize.
You got shows and TikTok and social media and all kind of stuff it's going to empower women. And I really think that I think we've had the need for professional sports women's leagues that are still somewhat struggling, and now we have a sports network that I hope will succeed. And the WNBA is growing, so it's been amazing to just kind of see in the last 4 or 5 years. And now when Brittany Griner comes back to play, that could be one of the most watched games in the history of female sports. I think it would be an honor and awesome to be a reporter at that. I know that we've kind of watched her and championed her cause and everything. But where do you see the future of women's sports going now? Because again, you're going to have a network. Are there going to be people that are going to view it? People, sponsors going to want to put stuff on. What's next for women in sports?
I hope everything you just said comes to fruition. And I think the biggest thing is people need to know where to watch women's sports. That we know on Sundays what time the football games are. We know when the baseball games are, NBA, whatever it is. But it's not always easy to find women's sports. And so there needs to be a consistency. And there needs to be what you are doing right now. I've been doing, a bunch of interviews today on Radio Row. And I'm really thankful that every man is asking me about Galvanize. That's really special for me because it used to be when I started Galvanize, if it was a woman reporter, I was like, cool, I'll talk about Galvanize. But now having men talk about women in sports, not just on Women Crush Wednesday and during National Girls and Women's Sports Day, I don't post anything on Galvanize because I'm like, we do this 365 days. So it can't be that you tag your favorite woman in sports one day a year. It has to be that men start covering the game. I agree with you on Brittany Griner. That's going to be a hugely reported game, and I certainly hope it's not just women reporting on it. And I hope that we have. I hope that we start having more coverage, not women's networks, not women's newspapers or magazines. It has to be that as a whole, our industry says we've got to start treating women's sports like it's an actual professional league.
And an equal. So we're not at a Super Bowl saying we have the first 2 black quarterbacks. I mean, we need to get past all these first so it just becomes the norm. So when we turn on, it's our favorite team. It's our Phoenix Mercury. It's whatever that you follow in female soccer. I don't know why softball can't pick up and be a real big thing because, again, they're playing it, they're doing it. And so that's why it's been great to have you here. And we're going to wrap up in just a second. But don't forget all of our viewers out there that are so looking good like I am here on Radio Row. I'm wearing my Fresh Clean Threads, and we have an exclusive for you this week. If you go to freshcleantees.com, type in the /GSS show, 25% off this week, exclusive only to us. This company gave us our own little show code to help you guys save money. You look good, you feel good. Troy's wearing it. I wore it last night, opening night, and people said I was actually kind of good looking. So go to freshcleanthreads.com, type in the show code touchdown, and you're going to look as good as we do, right, Troy? Show off your shirt, man. This Fresh Clean Threads, you don't look so sloppy.
Wow. Very comfortable.
You look so much better than Carrot Top.
Yay!
You never know who you're going to see. It's going to boost everything, and you guys take a little time for us. And I know you've done times where you've been doing the game, and you're doing TV, and you do radio. I mean, as Troy touched on that mindset, how do you stay fresh and prepared during the game when so much is going on? You might have a person helping you, but you're just this little person because you are not, you're about the same size as I am, but
you're around all these big football players. How can you see the action? I know someone's in your ear, but you have to tell those stories, and you only have a certain time to get information on an injury or what's going on.
Man, actually, the person in my ear is usually the one I have to tell what's going on, right? So I'm the only one who's on that field and seeing what I'm seeing and has those relationships down there, to talk to people. And so they're relying on me. And I think when I was a young reporter, I was so focused on how many hits am I getting and how many times am I on television. And that's how I defined my day. And then you get older and you get a little wiser and you realize, boy, I am the smallest part of this broadcast. I'm still a part of the broadcast, but there's a football game going on. And so all of a sudden you realize, well, I may have gotten on TV this many times today, but how many times did I help my partners? How many times did I help my guys in the booth? How many times did I help my producer, my director, my cameraman? And so I think you train yourself. There's 3 games going on for me. The game that everybody's watching. I'm watching the sidelines for injuries, for communication, for fights, for guys, for what they say and hear. I can hear everything. And then the third one is listening to the game in my ear, because the most important thing I can do is listen to, if it's TV, Kevin Kubler and Mark Sanchez in my ear. And if it's a Super Bowl, it's Kevin Harlan, Kurt Warner, and Mike Golick. And so if they talk about somebody looks like they haven't been in a while, or somebody looks like he's not completely right, well, I better hear that so I can go over and say he's getting treatment right now. Nobody's touching him right now. And I have to be their eyes and their ears. So if they say somebody hasn't been in the last 2 series, but I've been over on the other sideline watching that injury that's happening, I hear that and go, well, then I need to run over there and I need to find out, is that rotation or is that a coach's decision? And I need to watch that for a minute. And then also just trying to, in the middle of all that, watch a game. So you're running around, and there's times where all of a sudden the game starts, I'm on injuries, I'm on things going on down there, and all of a sudden I look up at the clock and I've got to meet the coach in 2 minutes. And I haven't been watching the game. So you have to train yourself, to make sure you're paying attention here, you're paying attention to 2 sidelines, you're paying attention here. And my favorite thing in the world is when I get shadows who come on the field and they just go, this isn't anything like I thought it was. It's a lot of work down there, and it's where I'm really grateful that I have a reporter background, because a lot of times in this position now, they throw people in really quickly, and I'm like, oof, I'm really grateful that I know how to be a reporter. I know how to use my eyes and my ears. I know when not to. I know, now the great thing about doing it so long, I'm very careful how I report on injuries. I make sure that I know what I'm talking about, and I also make sure I don't treat them like body parts. Patrick Mahomes' ankle that ankle's on a body, and it belongs to a human, and so this. So I make sure that I'm never talking about body parts, but I'm talking about humans down there. And that's probably one of my favorite ways that I've grown up in this business, is making sure that these aren't players, these aren't body parts, these are human beings playing a very violent sport.
Well, I appreciate your intimacy and opening up. And I'm going to ask this question because I hate it. I've been in TV for 4 years. I've observed it. Men can be ugly and grow old and still be on TV, and women seem to have an expiration date. And I just don't think it's fair that we watch television newscasters and people just kind of kicked out. And you're holding up well, but I'm wondering, is that in the back of your mind? It's like, it's so not fair in this men-driven world of television, but it's like, okay, so what do you want to do in 10 years? And what can we do to fix the problem of the media not being fair for how a woman can age out on television and be a Chris Berman in the broadcast or whatever, and yet women, you're 45, you're 50, no, you're not. You want people looking at you for different reasons. And that is the truth. It's not right, but it's the truth.
I think what I'd say is that was in the back of my mind when I was 30 a lot, because I was always told that you couldn't be past 40. And so I thought about that, I feared that, and I believed that for a really long time. My best friend for over 20 years was Stuart Scott. And Stuart used to always say, Stuart was just a couple years older than me, and he'd say, why is it that I'm, nearing 40 and you and I both are getting better. We've never been better, and everybody's celebrating him, but everyone's asking me what my next thing is. And I'm like, I'm just getting good. Like I'm just starting to feel the confidence. And so I think it's one of the reasons I've probably stayed so long is I have an organization of women that I don't want them just to see women. There's a lot of women, but I want them to see women who are over 50 and not just who are limping around in this business. But I'm really proud of the fact that I've called the last 4 Super Bowls, and it took me a long time to get there. So I want them to see a woman who's living her best life, that they know that I'm respected. They know that I am fulfilled in what I do. They know that I worked my butt off to be here, but they also know I live a very full life. That's not my job, and that a job is a part of it, but I'm crushing it at this age, and not just my job, my life. And it's very, very important for me, for my 20 somethings, to see that, wow, I can't wait to be in my 50s when I feel as good as Laura does.
Before we let you go, I got to ask you about the game on Sunday. What kind of game are you expecting, and do you have a prediction to give us?
I never do predictions. I've been in the business long enough to go. I don't want to.
You want to remember Brad does money.
Yeah, to me, it's just there's nothing that thrills me more than a game breaking out, and you're like, oh, I didn't see this, because it's a guess. We're in the facilities on Friday, and you're like, they look great. They're so crisp. And that quarterback didn't drop one single ball. He threw 30 straight passes, and we're like, he's going to crush it. And then a game breaks out. And so I feel like this in life. I want to enjoy it and not try to predict it. But I expect this to be a great game. I mean, I've had these two teams the last couple of weeks, and not only are they great at what they do, but boy, this chemistry, this connection, this aggressiveness, and the love that they have for each other is really real. And I also love the fact that we've got two teams that have been here recently. So sometimes you play the whole, well, one team has been here, but this group hasn't been here. And that does mean something when there's a bunch of new guys that don't understand this game is different. But I love the fact that we've got two teams who are used to being here. So it's not going to be like those nerves the first quarter. They both were loose last night. We talked to both teams and talked to a lot of the guys just one-on-one, and I was really fired up. Usually you kind of are like, I don't know, this team might be a little naive, or this team might be a little less experienced, but these are two really talented teams, offensively, defensively. I'm always going to say, man, Andy Reid, right now this feels like this is his story, right? Like just such a poetic game here. And so my heart probably leans that way because I do believe in full circles, but it's hard to count out the Eagles right now and how well they're playing.
And speaking of teams, if he stays retired, Tom Brady's joining your team. Are you looking forward to that? Maybe work with him a little bit and seeing a different lighter side and just kind of, it seems like everything he does, he's a success at. So it's going to be kind of a fun thing to kind of watch.
Yeah, it's neat, right? It's the cool thing. Another cool thing about being in the business this long, the players you cover become your teammates, and it's what we're always hoping for is how did they treat us? And I don't mean that from a personal, like if you treat me badly, you're out, but how they respect the industry and how they respect storytelling and how they respect how we call the games, and that means something. And Tom is very much like Peyton was. They don't miss production meetings, that they knew that this was an important part of their job, was making sure that they met with the crews and that they felt like it was their responsibility to make sure that we got information from them. And so how neat for, Mark Sanchez, I've known him since he was a rookie, and then all of a sudden he becomes my partner in the last few years. And I'm so grateful that I loved him as a player. And I loved him as a young kid. And so what I would say is I know that we're all looking forward to being teammates with Tom, whatever role it is.
All right. Well, make sure you do what I do and turn down the Fox broadcast and turn on the Westwood One radio to go play-by-play with it. Listen to Laura on the sidelines. Laura, thank you for joining us, and best of luck in the future for a long career. And again, go to Laura's website, lauraokmin.com. And check out more about Galvanize and some of the amazing people. She had the coolest entourage. I thought J-Lo had walked in here with the entourage of folks that you had with you.
Women.
It was it's really neat to see here, and it really is empowering to women to see all of them working for one thing and not just doing makeup and this kind of stuff. It's like, and you go, girl.
Yeah, we got some rock stars who are studs, not because they're women. They just happen to be women. So thank you for that.
All about. Well, thank you, Laura, for joining us. And again, Gary Stevens here all week from Radio Row. Our fans, again, I got to tell you about this amazing thing. If you go to freshcleantees.com and let me hand Laura our two medium. Does that work for you?
I'll take
She's
them.
got our fresh clean threads that she gets for free, but you get 25% off if you go to freshcleantees.com, type in /GSS show, 25% exclusive to the Gary Stein and Steven fans out there. And we really thank our sponsors. Of course, we got Jambar, that's a part of our weekend, helping us out with the Dave Stevens camp, what's going on with Luis and Dejas. There's still time to register for our camp that's taking place February 11th at Camelback High School. We got stars, we got players, we got people, we got food, we got all kinds of fun. And that's going to be coming up this, what is this, Saturday, right, Troy? You're going to be there. And, of course, we'll continue to do amazing things on Radio Row. We got Rob right behind him with a couple of footballs getting signed. So thank you, Rob, for being a part of us. Thank you, Laura. We'll see you later in the week and see her on the sidelines. And, again, just catching up with some of the stars and the wonderful things. Dana White coming up a little bit later. We'll talk MMA. We'll talk slap fight. Troy and I think, are going to have a slap fight up here to demonstrate what the Slap Fight League is all about. Dave Stevens and Troy and Will somewhere on Radio Row. Continue to support us, follow us, and love us. We'll be back in just a bit.